everyone, welcome back to Love English Lab. I'm Luna, and I'm really happy you're here with us today. This episode is a special one because we're talking about something almost every learner deals with, no matter how long they've been studying, those little mistakes that somehow follow you even when you reach a higher level.
And I'm Michael. It's great to have you here. You know, Luna, I think a lot of learners feel embarrassed when they keep making mistakes, even at an advanced level. But the truth is, it's completely normal. Even people who have been speaking English for years sometimes repeat the same patterns without realizing it.
Exactly. Mistakes don't mean you're bad at English, they mean you're growing. And honestly, many mistakes happen because learners hear something one way, repeat it for years, and never stop to check if it's actually correct.
Yes, and some of these mistakes are so common that even fluent speakers who learned English as adults make them too. It's not a sign of weakness. It's just part of the learning journey.
And that's why this episode can be really helpful. We're not here to judge anyone or make you feel bad. We want to help you understand why these mistakes happen and how small changes can make your English sound cleaner, clearer, and more natural.
Right? And what I like about this topic is that fixing common mistakes isn't hard. Sometimes all you need is a little awareness. Once you notice the pattern, you start correcting yourself naturally without thinking too much about it.
And many times, it's not even about grammar, it's about habits, pronunciation, or using a phrase that sounds fine in your language but feels a bit strange in English.
So true. And I think it's important to say this. Even advanced learners shouldn't expect perfection. English isn't about getting every tiny detail right. It's about communicating well and sounding comfortable with the language.
Yes, that's such an important message. Perfection actually slows many learners down because they're afraid to speak. But confidence grows when you understand your weak points and work with them, not against them.
And something that often surprises people is that many common mistakes come from trying too hard. Sometimes learners choose a complicated structure because they want to sound fluent, but a simple sentence would sound much more natural.
Exactly. Fluency doesn't mean long sentences. It means choosing the right ones. And sometimes the right sentence is the easiest one.
So in this episode, we'll talk about some mistakes that show up again and again, even at high levels. We'll look at why they happen, what they sound like to a native speaker, and of course, how to fix them in a simple, natural way.
And remember, everything we share today comes from real conversations. These are mistakes we've heard hundreds of times, so if you recognize yourself in any of them, you're definitely not alone.
That's right. And the good news is, once you understand the reason behind these mistakes, you can improve your English almost instantly.
So get comfortable, relax, and let's take a friendly look at the mistakes advanced learners make without even noticing.
And more importantly, let's learn the simple ways to fix them.
So, Michael, before we even talk about specific mistakes, I think we should start with something important: why these mistakes happen in the first place.
Yes, that's a great point. Because a lot of learners think, if I'm advanced, I shouldn't be making mistakes anymore. But that's not how language works at all.
Exactly. Language isn't a math problem, it's a habit, and habits stay with you unless you consciously change them. Even if you learn a correct structure later, the older one might still be stronger in your mind.
Right? And one of the biggest reasons advanced learners repeat mistakes is that they learned something incorrectly at the beginning, and no one corrected it. So it becomes automatic.
Yes. And once something becomes automatic, your brain feels like it's the right version, even if it's not. You don't even realize you're saying it.
Another reason is translation. Even advanced learners sometimes translate without noticing. Something sounds perfect in their first language, so they reproduce it in English, and it doesn't quite fit.
Oh, yes, that happens all the time. For example, many languages use direct translations for expressions, but in English, the structure is softer or more indirect.
Exactly. And because the translation sounds natural to you, you don't notice the mistake.
Another big reason is overthinking. Advanced learners want to sound intelligent or native-like, so they choose complicated phrases when they don't need to.
That's so true. Sometimes learners avoid simple words because they think simple means basic. But in English, simple often sounds more natural.
Yes. For example, many learners choose longer structures like, I would like to inquire about, when a native speaker would just say, I want to ask about.
And that's not a mistake in terms of grammar, but it can sound unnatural. And when learners try too hard, mistakes appear more easily.
Exactly. And here's another thing, English has exceptions everywhere. Rules don't always behave like you expect. Even advanced learners face surprises.
Absolutely. For example, irregular verbs, strange prepositions, words that look similar but have different meanings. It's a lot to manage.
And sometimes a learner knows the rule perfectly, but makes a mistake because they're tired, nervous, or speaking too fast.
Yes, and that happens to everyone. Even native speakers make mistakes every day. They mix up words, forget endings, or use the wrong preposition without thinking.
I love that you said that. When learners hear native speakers make mistakes, they feel less pressure.
Definitely, because fluency isn't about perfection, it's about communication. If people understand you easily, you're already fluent.
And many advanced learners don't realize how fluent they already are. They focus only on the few things they still say wrong, instead of all the things they say right.
That's a great point. Confidence plays a huge role here. When someone is nervous, the chances of repeating an old mistake go up dramatically.
Yes, like when you know how to say something correctly, but the old version still slips out under pressure.
Exactly. It's just your brain choosing the fastest option, not the most accurate one.
And sometimes learners don't get enough exposure to natural English. They read a lot or study grammar, but they don't hear real conversations.
Yes, and real conversations are full of natural patterns, rhythms, and expressions that you can't learn only from books.
And without those examples, some mistakes stay hidden because you think everyone says things the same way you do.
That's why listening practice is so important. When you hear native speakers use a structure repeatedly, your brain updates itself naturally.
Yes. And speaking with more confidence helps too. When you speak without fear, you can pay more attention to your patterns.
You know, one of my favorite things about advanced learners is that they're usually very self aware. They notice things, they reflect, and that makes it easier to fix mistakes when they finally understand them.
Exactly. And many advanced learners improve incredibly fast once someone points out the mistake clearly and explains the reason behind it.
Yes, because advanced learners don't need long explanations. They just need awareness.
And a little push in the right direction.
So true. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. Shine a light on the common mistakes that show up again and again so listeners can finally fix them.
Right? And not with boring grammar rules, but with natural explanations and examples from real English.
So now that we've talked about why these mistakes happen, I think we're ready to look at the first category of mistakes.
Yes, and this one surprises a lot of people because even advanced learners still struggle with it. Tiny grammar slip-ups that sound small, but change the meaning of a sentence.
Let's get into that next.
So, Michael, let's get into the first type of mistake that advanced learners still make, even after years of studying. Those small grammar slip-ups that seem so tiny but make a sentence feel a bit off.
Yes, the kind of mistakes that don't stop communication, but they do make the English sound less natural. And honestly, many of these mistakes come from mixing rules that learners learned long ago with rules they picked up later.
Exactly. One of the most common ones happens with the present perfect and the past simple. Even advanced learners mix them up because the difference is very subtle.
Yes! For example, a learner might say, I lived here for 5 years, when the meaning is still true now. But in English, if the situation continues, you usually say, I've lived here for 5 years.
Right, and the funny thing is, both sentences make sense. People will understand you. But the second one, with the present perfect, sounds more natural to a native speaker.
Another classic mistake happens with countable and uncountable nouns. Even advanced learners sometimes say things like informations or advices. because it feels logical in their language.
Oh, yes, that one is so common. In English, information and advice are uncountable, so we don't add an S. You just say some information or a piece of advice.
And it's interesting because learners often know the rule, but when they're speaking quickly, the plural slips out.
That's true. Another grammar habit that sneaks in is forgetting the S in the third person singular. Even advanced speakers sometimes say, she walk every day, instead of she walks every day.
Yes, and that usually happens because the brain is thinking about the action or the context, not the structure. It's such a tiny detail, but it really changes the rhythm of the sentence.
Another subtle mistake happens with articles, a, an, and they. Learners sometimes overuse them or forget them completely.
Right? For example, someone might say, I went to the church, when they simply mean they visited a building. But the church usually refers to a specific institution or event. It changes the meaning without the learner noticing.
Yes, and sometimes people say, I studied the English, which sounds strange in English. We usually say, I studied English, without the article.
These article mistakes happen because many languages use them differently. Some use them more often, others less, so the learner's instinct doesn't always match English patterns.
Another one I hear a lot is using much in positive sentences. For example, I like it much. It's correct in some languages, but in English we usually say, I like it a lot.
Yes, much in positive sentences sounds formal or unusual unless it's part of a structure like much better or much more.
And here's another interesting mistake, confusing since and for. Even advanced learners sometimes say, I've known him since 5 years, when it should be, I've known him for 5 years.
Yes, because since refers to a starting point, and for refers to a duration. But when someone is speaking quickly, they might choose the wrong one automatically.
Another tricky one is mixing up gerunds and infinitives, like, I enjoy to cook, instead of I enjoy cooking.
Yes, and the reason is simple. Different verbs follow different patterns, and English doesn't always follow logic. You have to internalize each one over time.
Another subtle mistake is using the wrong preposition. For example, saying, depend of, married with, or discuss about.
Yes, these are very common because in many languages the prepositions look similar. But in English we say depend on, married to, and discuss something without about.
And sometimes even advanced learners memorize a rule, but they still say the wrong preposition because their first language is stronger in that moment.
Exactly. Preposition mistakes are normal and happen to almost everyone.
You know what else I notice a lot? People using more better. It's funny because learners know the rule. Don't use more with a comparative. But under pressure, they still say it.
Yes, I've heard that too. It's not a sign of a low level, it's just a sign of a brain moving too fast.
Another grammar slip-up happens with question structure. People sometimes say, why you didn't call, instead of, why didn't you call?
Yes, and that's because in many languages the structure stays the same in a question. But in English, we invert the auxiliary and the subject.
And again, most advanced learners know that perfectly. But when they speak fast or feel stressed, the rule gets lost.
These mistakes are normal, and that's the message I want learners to really hear. They don't mean you're not advanced. They just mean you're human.
Exactly. And the good news is that once you start noticing these patterns, you can correct them without much effort.
Awareness is the first step. And now that we've looked at grammar slip-ups, I think we should move to another category of mistakes that advanced learners constantly face. Vocabulary habits that sound natural in their native language, but a little unusual in English.
Yes, those mistakes can be very surprising, and they often show up in everyday conversations.
Let's explore those next.
So, Michael, earlier we talked about grammar slip-ups. Now, I think we should dive into the vocabulary mistakes that advanced learners make without even realizing it.
Yes, these mistakes are interesting because they're usually not wrong, but they sound a little unusual to native speakers. They're like signals that someone learned English in the classroom instead of real life.
Exactly. One classic one is when learners say something is very delicious. It makes sense, but natives almost never say it like that.
Right? We usually just say, it's delicious, or even more natural, it's really good, or this tastes amazing.
Yes, because delicious is already strong. Adding very makes it feel a bit heavy. But learners do it because in their languages, intensifiers work differently.
Another very common one is overusing the word big. People say a big problem, a big success, a big mistake. They're correct, but English has more specific words.
Exactly. In natural English, we might say a major problem, a huge success, or a serious mistake. Those choices sound closer to how natives express intensity.
Yes, and sometimes learners use words that are technically correct but don't fit the context, like saying, I am very sensible, when they actually mean sensitive.
Oh, yes, that one happens because sensible in many languages means someone who feels emotions easily. But in English, sensible means someone who is reasonable and practical.
Exactly, and sensitive means emotional or easily affected. That tiny difference changes the whole meaning.
Another vocabulary habit I see a lot is using the word actually too often. Learners use it to sound natural, but sometimes it feels unnecessary.
Yes, like when someone says, I actually went to the store and actually I bought milk and actually it was cheap. It's not wrong, but natives use actually only when they really need contrast or surprise.
Right. It's powerful when used correctly, but too much makes the sentence feel heavy.
Another funny one is when learners say they are constipated, meaning I'm congested, like they have a cold. But in English, constipated is about digestion, not the nose.
Yes, that's a classic. The right way would be I'm stuffed up or I'm congested.
Another vocabulary issue happens with direct translations. For example, learners say, I have much work, which is correct, but sounds formal. Natives usually say, I have a lot of work.
Exactly. Or instead of saying I am very tired, they could say I'm exhausted, which sounds stronger and more natural.
Another one I hear often is using obligated instead of required. Learners say, I am obligated to do this, but natives usually say, I have to do this, or I'm required to do this.
Yes, correct vocabulary, but wrong register. It feels too formal for daily conversation.
Another subtle issue happens with phrases like, take a decision. In many languages, that's normal, but in English, we say, make a decision.
Or make a photo instead of take a photo. These small differences really change how natural someone sounds.
Another one is when learners use funny to mean strange. In English, funny usually means comical, not weird.
Right. So, saying this smell is funny might sound like you think the smell is hilarious. It should be this smell is strange or this smell is weird.
Exactly. Context matters a lot in English.
Another thing I hear often is using my actual job when they mean my current job. In English, actual means real, not current.
Yes. So, my actual job means my real job, not the job I have right now.
And what about the word respect? Learners sometimes say, in my opinion, I respect, when they mean in my opinion or with all due respect.
Yes, that's a direct translation problem. The sentence becomes unclear. In English, respect doesn't replace from my perspective.
Exactly. Another one is overusing very when there are better alternatives. Instead of very cold, you can say freezing. Instead of very angry, you can say furious.
True. Advanced learners know these words, but forget to use them because very feels safe.
Another mistake happens when people say, I have 30 years, instead of I am 30 years old. It's logical in many languages, but in English, we are an age. We don't have it.
Yes, that one is classic. Even advanced speakers slip sometimes.
And let's not forget false friends in vocabulary. For example, embarrassed and pregnant in Spanish sound similar but are totally different.
Yes, a learner might say, I'm so pregnant, when they mean, I'm so embarrassed. That one can cause some very funny misunderstandings.
Another subtle issue is using too when they mean very. If someone says, I'm too tired, in English that means so tired that I can't continue. But many learners mean only very tired.
Yes, too expresses excess, something negative or limiting. Learners overuse it because it looks simple.
Another misstep is using eventually to mean possibly. But in English, eventually means in the end.
Yes, like I'll eventually move to Canada, meaning one day in the future, not maybe.
So many of these vocabulary mistakes happen because learners think in their language first and English second.
Exactly. And the key to fixing them is exposure. The more you hear natural English, the more these expressions become automatic.
Totally agree. And the good news is that these mistakes are easy to fix once you become aware of them.
Now that we've explored vocabulary patterns, I think the next thing we should talk about is pronunciation mistakes that advanced learners still make without realizing it.
Yes, pronunciation is a completely different world, and even small shifts can change everything.
Then let's dive into that next.
Michael, something I really love about pronunciation mistakes is that they're not always about speaking badly. Sometimes learners pronounce a word correctly, but not in the way natives actually say it.
Yes, exactly. And advanced learners especially struggle with this because they know so many words, but the rhythm or stress can make the meaning unclear.
One example that comes up a lot is the difference between live and leave. Even advanced speakers mix them because the sounds are so close.
Yes, live has a short I like sit, and leave has a long E sound. When someone says, I want to live now instead of leave now, it creates confusion.
Exactly. Natives understand from context, but the moment is still awkward. And the same happens with beach and, well, the inappropriate version.
Oh, yes, that one is famous. If learners don't make the long E sound in beach, the sentence becomes something very different.
Right? I love the beach becomes something very embarrassing.
Another interesting one is how learners say comfortable. Many advanced learners say comfortable, pronouncing every syllable, but natives say comfortable.
Yes. And the same thing happens with vegetable, family, or chocolate. Natives almost delete entire syllables.
Exactly. So a learner might say vegetable, but natives say vegetable. The written form and the spoken form are almost two different words.
Another pronunciation habit is stressing the wrong syllable.
Yes, stress changes everything in English.
And then there are words like world, which are difficult even for advanced learners because of the combination of sounds.
Yes, the R and L together are tricky. Many learners say war-old or wold. The native sound is much tighter, like world.
Another one is girl. Learners sometimes say it with a very open vowel, like girl, but natives keep it close to the R sound.
True. And pronunciation problems often come from trying to say every letter. English is not a transparent language. Letters lie.
They really do, like the word honest. The H is silent, or knife, or island. Learners read the words correctly but pronounce them literally.
Yes. And even advanced learners sometimes say Wednesday, pronouncing the D. But natives say Wednesday.
Another pronunciation issue is the teach sound. Even advanced speakers sometimes replace it with D or T, saying dis instead of this, or tink instead of think.
Yes, it's one of the hardest sounds in English. But the problem isn't the sound itself. It's using it automatically. In long sentences, learners forget and switch back.
Exactly. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency.
Another tricky pair is ship and sheep. Many advanced learners mix these because they don't differentiate the vowel length.
Yes. Ship is short, sheep is long. Saying I saw a sheep versus I saw a ship can totally change the story.
Another classic is how learners say focus. If the vowel is too short or stressed strangely, it sounds like a bad word.
Oh, yes, that one surprises people. They want to say focus, but it sounds like something else. Natives keep the faux sound long and clear.
And then there's the rhythm of English. Many advanced learners pronounce every word with equal stress, but English has strong and weak beats.
Yes, for example, in the sentence I want to go, natives say I wanna go. The to becomes weak, but learners often say each word clearly and slowly.
Which is understandable, but it sounds less natural. Fluency is more about rhythm than speed.
Exactly. And another mistake is putting stress on grammar words instead of content words. Learners might say, I want to go, stressing everything, when natives stress mainly want and go.
Yes, and this affects listening skills too. Learners struggle to understand natives because they expect every word to sound clear.
Right. But natives reduce so much. Did you becomes didja, and want to becomes wanna.
Another pronunciation challenge is final consonants. Learners from many language backgrounds drop them. They say round instead of round, or mose instead of most.
And dropping the final sound can make the word sound incomplete or like a different word.
Totally. And it's not just consonants. Sometimes vowels get changed unintentionally. For example, learners say cap when they mean cup.
Yes, the difference between those vowel sounds is tiny but important, and natives notice it right away.
Another point is that stress patterns change meaning in phrases. For example, saying, I didn't say he stole the money can have many meanings depending on which word you stress.
Yes. If you stress I, it means someone else said it. If you stress stole, it changes the implication. Advanced learners rarely practice sentence stress, but it's crucial.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest pronunciation mistake advanced learners make is trying too hard to sound perfect instead of natural.
Yes. They focus on individual sounds instead of connecting words smoothly.
Exactly. Fluency is connection, not precision.
So true. And now that we touched pronunciation, I think we should move to another challenge: mistakes in tone and formality.
Yes, because even advanced learners sometimes sound too formal, too direct, or too soft without knowing it.
Then that's where we'll go next. Michael, I think this last type of mistake is one of the most surprising for advanced learners because it has nothing to do with grammar or vocabulary. It's all about tone.
Yes, I agree. Tone is invisible, but it controls how your message feels. You can say the right words and still sound too direct, too formal, too casual, or even rude without noticing.
Exactly. And advanced learners often make tone mistakes because they translate politeness from their own language. But English politeness works differently.
One example is how learners sometimes say, give me the file, or send me the report. Grammatically, it's correct, but the tone is too strong.
Yes. In English, commands sound intense, even if you don't mean them that way. Natives soften requests by adding small words. Could you send me the report? Or can you share the file with me?
Right. It's not about being indirect, it's about sounding friendly. English uses softeners to protect the relationship, not the message.
Another tone issue happens when learners try to sound polite but choose expressions that are too formal. For example, I would like to inquire about the schedule. It's correct, but in normal life, people say, can I ask about the schedule? Or, do you know the schedule?
Yes, and advanced learners often worry about sounding rude, so they choose the most formal option. But formality can actually create distance.
That's so true. And then the opposite also happens. Learners use casual phrases in situations where a more respectful tone is expected, like saying, "Hey dude," to a manager.
Yes, I've heard things like that. Or calling a teacher by their first name without being invited to. English has invisible rules about who can use certain forms of address.
Another classic tone mistake is answering too directly. For example, if someone asks, "Do you like my idea?" and you say, "No," it sounds cold.
Yes, native speakers usually soften disagreement. They say things like, "I'm not sure about that," or "maybe we could try something else." It sends the same message, but with respect.
And advanced learners know a lot of vocabulary, but they don't always practice how to disagree kindly.
Another tone mistake happens with the word why. Learners ask, "Why did you do that?" when they just want to understand. But to natives, this question can sound accusatory.
Yes. In English, why feels emotional. It sounds like you're blaming someone. A softer alternative is, "What made you choose that?" or "How did you decide that?"
Exactly. You get the information you want, but without the emotional pressure.
Another interesting tone issue is enthusiasm. Learners sometimes sound too neutral in situations where English speakers expect warmth.
Yes. For example, someone says, "I got the job," and the learner answers, "Okay." That sounds cold. A native speaker would say, "That's great," or "Congratulations."
And the opposite can happen too. Learners sometimes sound overly excited in serious situations because they translate emotional habits from their own language.
Right? Tone is cultural. What sounds warm in one language might sound exaggerated in another.
Another common tone confusion is using please incorrectly. Learners sometimes add please in a place where it sounds impatient.
Yes. For example, "Send it now, please." The sentence sounds like a command with a soft cover. But if you say, "Could you send it now?" the tone is completely different.
Tone changes with rhythm, too. If you say, "Can you help me?" with strong stress, you sound annoyed. If you say, "Can you help me?" calmly, it's friendly.
Exactly. English politeness is as much about delivery as it is about vocabulary.
Another tone mistake is overusing apologies. Some advanced learners say, "sorry," too much.
Yes, they say sorry when they didn't do anything wrong. In English, sorry is emotional, so using it too often makes conversations feel heavy.
Instead, natives say, "excuse me," or "just a moment," or "one sec," depending on the situation.
And sometimes they don't apologize at all. They just speak. English doesn't require as much formal politeness as some languages.
Another tone challenge is asking personal questions in a way that feels too direct. For example, "How much do you earn?" Or "Why aren't you married?"
Yes, those questions exist in every language, but English speakers use soft introductions like, "If you don't mind me asking," or "Can I ask something personal?"
Tone gives people emotional space. It shows that you respect their boundaries.
Another subtle issue is offering help. Learners often say, "Do you want help?" which sounds a bit harsh. Natives say, "Do you need a hand?" or "Can I help with anything?"
Yes, and it sounds more friendly and natural.
Another tone mistake is answering too literally. Someone asks, "How are you?" and the learner says, "Not very good. I'm tired. My cat is sick, and my boss yelled at me."
Oh, yes, that's a cultural difference. The question is more of a greeting. A simple, "I'm okay, thanks," is often enough unless the person is very close to you.
Tone mistakes are not really mistakes. They're signs that the learner is thinking in another cultural system while speaking English.
Exactly. And once you start noticing these tone patterns, your English becomes smoother, friendlier, and more natural without learning a single new grammar rule.
And I think this brings us perfectly to our final reflection, because everything we talked about grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, tone connects to one big idea: awareness.
Yes. When you're aware of the patterns, fluency grows automatically. Let's wrap it all up next. You know, Michael, after talking through all these mistakes, Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and tone. I keep thinking about something important. None of these mistakes mean someone is bad at English. They just show that the learner has reached a level where improvement comes from awareness, not from memorizing new rules.
I feel the same. When a learner reaches the advanced stage, the real progress isn't about adding more words or learning complicated grammar. It's about noticing the small habits that shape how natural you sound. Those tiny adjustments make a huge difference.
Yes. And what I love is that these mistakes are completely normal. Every advanced learner makes them, even people who have lived in English-speaking countries for years.
Absolutely. And sometimes learners feel embarrassed when they notice a mistake. But honestly, noticing it is the first sign that they're becoming fluent. If you hear yourself and say, "Oh, that didn't sound quite right," that's growth.
Exactly. Fluency isn't a moment, it's a process. It's not about speaking perfectly, it's about speaking confidently and naturally. And that develops over time.
Another thing I want learners to remember is that native speakers also make mistakes. They mix tenses, forget words, pronounce things incorrectly, and use fillers all the time. The difference is that they don't panic.
Yes, they just keep going. And that's such a powerful lesson. You don't need perfect English to communicate well. You need comfortable English, human English.
I love that phrase, human English, because sometimes learners think fluency means sounding like a robot with perfect grammar. But real fluency is flexible. It adapts to the moment, to the tone, to the relationship.
Exactly. And when you listen to native speakers, you'll notice that their English is full of shortcuts, reductions, softeners, and natural expressions. Those things only come from exposure and practice, not from studying rules.
Yes. And once learners start paying attention to how English feels, not just how it works, their speaking becomes smoother almost automatically.
That's true. And I hope everyone listening realizes that the mistakes we talked about today are not failures, they're opportunities. Each one shows you where you can grow next.
And the great thing is that you don't have to fix everything at once. You can focus on one category at a time. Maybe start noticing tone, or maybe practice reducing words the way native speakers do. Small steps lead to big improvements.
Yes. And the moment you start hearing English differently, you start speaking differently too. Awareness changes everything.
So true. And I think the most important message from this episode is that advanced learners shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. They should be curious about them, because every mistake teaches something.
Exactly. Curiosity is the heart of fluency. When you stay curious, learning becomes lighter, easier, and even fun.
I hope today's conversation helps learners feel more confident and more relaxed about their English.
Yes, and I hope they walk away knowing they're doing better than they think. If you're noticing these mistakes, you're already at a high level.
Completely. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep adjusting, and your English will keep evolving.
Thank you for joining us today. We're really proud of you for being here and working on your English with us.
And we'll see you next time on Love English Lab.
Until then, keep learning with confidence and curiosity.
Take care, everyone.
Of the Amazon.